Enough chairs? Excellent. Right, I'm going to say not very much, hopefully, to introduce this session. This is taking back your local democracy. We've heard things, what we wanted to do in that first session was to sort of set the scene more nationally and internationally, and then now bring it to some of the things which we can really do and are doing. To give a tiny bit more context, I mean, I think it's been an extraordinary last few months, really, seeing masses of people all over Europe effectively doing democracy, partly by walking to places and you know, getting out of what they're in, but then also just extraordinary scenes of people. God, sorry about this. It brings tears to my eyes, but it really does, in that sense of people welcoming refugees and just overcoming. Just not going with the politics of their parties, saying, actually, I want to do something different, which is incredibly moving. And that sort of has followed on, as John said, from Scotland and what happened in Scotland. And then Jeremy, I keep calling him Clarkson. What is his name? Jeremy, the other Jeremy being elected tomorrow. But actually, in a sense, the Jeremy Clarkson comment is part of what I want to say, because I think that the town councillors in Frome will make more decisions that will affect people's lives in a positive way over the next 4 years than Jeremy or the Scots will in Westminster. And that's what we could have come to now in this bit of conversation. I mean, that's essentially because they're working in, as Pippa said, an entirely dysfunctional system. So whoever they are, we've got a system where actually, you know, the party that wins is all powerful, and the party that wins only has to have roughly a fifth of the votes. And I think the reason for me why we've done what we've done in Frome, this is personally, is that actually there's two reasons. Reason one is that if we don't do it, no one else is going to. And as austerity kicks in with any party, you know, it becomes clearer and clearer that we have to do it ourselves. And secondly, because I think there's maybe a small chance that if people at this level, at a community level, change things and get things done using common sense, then maybe those above us will feel morally obliged at some point to change the wider political system into something that actually works. You know, I'm intrigued as to what point, you know, it comes. If a party is elected by, I don't know, 10%, is that all right? Can they take total power? 5%? 2%? You know, at what point does the system have to collapse to before someone will say, actually, you know what, we need to change the political system? And I hope that maybe by making it work at this level, we can put some pressure on that. I want to say one quick more thing, just to build on what Pippa said in relation to localism. David Cameron said in 2009, we must take the power from the political elite and give it to the man and woman on the street. And we've tried very hard to implement localism for him. But I'd say, actually, the main thing we've done in the last 4 years is to give more confidence to the community. I mean, there are lots of things that we've done, but I think we've given confidence to the community, but also to the council, to the staff, and to ourselves as councillors to actually do stuff. And that's what's really important. And this fine group of people who I'm going to introduce in a second are others who've sort of done that also in other parts of the country, some inspired by what we've done here and through Flatback Democracy for sale, £7.99 at the back, you know, and which was me writing this up because Peter Andrews, the publisher who's up there, persuaded me that we had a story to tell. So in some cases it's because of that, but in others it's not. And this is happening all over the place, where groups of people who are trying to do things outside of the party political system at this level of government have done it themselves. So we're going to hear very briefly from each of these people, who I'll introduce to you in a second. And then the other thing is that we're then going to go on, you know, as John touched on. I know this is all a bit of a rush, but it's actually a bit of an introduction to the rest of the day, because once we've finished, it's then all a massive free-for-all of chaos and anarchy. And then there'll be much more opportunity to engage with Podemos and others who we've talked with. Podemos, who incidentally, we as a town council have already started pinching ideas from, because we need to look outside of the norm in order to find ways of doing things. So the way that they're working in community groups, we've started to take and try and use. So I'm going to introduce you across the way like that, across to, initially to Pam Barrett, who's from Buckfastleigh in Devon, who's going to say a few words about what they've done and how they came to power in the last election. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so as Peter said, I'm from Buckfastleigh, which is a small town on the edge of Dartmoor. It's only about 3,500 people. And while there's been a lot of conversation here about party politics, that's not something we really suffered with much in Buckfastleigh. It was basically a small town with no politics. I think perhaps unlike, it's very similar to most parish councils, we can't find any trace of an election going back to when records began. We don't think our parish council was ever elected for maybe 30 years or more. And I think what we've seen over the past couple of decades is just a slow erosion through apathy of our services, our facilities, just a lack of engagement with the community, and actually just a slow erosion, unremarkable, just a whittling away of what we've got. And I think there's been two sort of fairly major turning points for us as a community. One was the community got together to fight a very controversial and damaging planning application, which was to turn our town into an incinerator bottom ash dump. And the town of 3,500 people raised £50,000 to fight that and take it all the way through to the planning inspectorate, which was an amazing achievement and perhaps the start of the turnaround of involvement with the community. We ran a parish poll on that as well, which was probably the largest turnout of a parish poll, with a 95% response in favour of rejecting the proposal. The second thing we did is on a much nicer scale was just little things like our swimming pool last year. The proposal was the council was going to close our swimming pool. We formed a group not to do it. So what we had is we had loads of people outside the parish council involved, really actively involved in issues, but our town council doing very little about it. Perhaps for fear of being controversial, as Pippa said earlier, that actually it was much easier not to do something. So we formed big. We'd talked about forming Town Council version 2.0 and actually forming an alternative to the council. But ultimately we decided that we needed to stand. We formed the Buckfastleigh Independence Group, and 9 of us stood for election at the last election, and all 9 of us got in. So there are 9 of us now out of a 12 votes. And we're finding our feet. We're grappling with the localism bill. We've got huge plans for a development on site, but maybe taking forward a community development order under the powers of the localism bill to see a major regeneration project. I think at the bottom line of all of this for us was just do something. You can't sit there and wait for someone else to do something, because you'll be waiting an awful long time.
Thanks very much. Great. I was waiting for someone to use the name of BIG, and they got in there first, because it's such a good acronyms. They're so important, So next along the line is Susanna Rustin from Queen's Park. Queen's Park's particularly interesting because they're the only parish council, that, as far as I know, in London. One of the other things within the Localism Act was that if you hold a referendum, you have the right, you can, and then win that referendum, you can have the right to form your own parish council and effectively insert another layer of democracy underneath that which comes above. So it's great to have you. Thanks. Hopefully that works. Let's see.
Okay, I think so. Hello, I'm Susanna Rustin. I'm very pleased to be here. Actually, the power to petition for a new parish predates the localism bill and was extended by the last Labour government to London. So anywhere else in England, you could petition for a new parish. Most of the last century, I think, but it was only from 1998 onwards that Londoners had this right. And I thought what I would do is tell the story of what we did in Queen's Park, since it is a bit different. Queen's Park, our parish has the same boundaries as our ward. We're in the City of Westminster, so that's our principal authority. It's about 10,000 people with 3 city councillors, which is typical of London. And because there are 2 adjacent wards called Queen's Park, one in Westminster and one in Brent, I'll just say that the demographics, if you know Queen's Park, which is very leafy and posh in Brent, where the tube station is and the actual park is not where our Queen's Park is. We're mostly social housing. It's a mixture of some nice terraces of Victorian cottages and sort of 1980s estates. So it's very socially mixed, and it's very poor. And one of the first things that happened in 2010 when the coalition was elected is that some of the regeneration money that had gone to wards like ours was cut straight away. So our initial campaign to set up the parish was a response to austerity and a response to the fact that a whole sort of level of community development work, events, sort of summer festival, fireworks display, lots of the things that wealthier communities or perhaps organise in a voluntary way through fundraising, but in our area had been funded basically through central government money, were going to stop. So the campaign for a parish council came off the back of this wish to preserve some things, some level of work and organisation that was already in place. But also a sense that it would be great if our community organisation, which we already had an elected neighbourhood forum, so although the parish council was new, it had a predecessor body which was an elected board of residents who were consulted and advised on how this government money should be spent. And almost no one involved had any background in party politics. I had done been involved in the local Green Party, but there was quite a large group, up to about 30 people, who were all really quite engaged and on for this campaign to form a new parish. But it was kind of clear from the outset, really, that it was going to be as independents, because just no one was really very engaged in party politics. And it's probably worth just giving the context of Westminster City Council, which is obviously a flagship Conservative local authority. But we have a Labour MP, and our particular ward has 3 Labour ward councillors. Westminster's extremely polarised, Conservative run, and likely to go on being Conservative run, but with a quite strong Labour minority. And I don't think anyone really thought that another tier of local government, another tier of Labour local government underneath the existing tier, was going to be able to achieve as much as what we hope we might achieve as a group of independents who'd hopefully be able to find new ways of working with the principal authority. So basically what you have to do to set up a new parish is get a petition. If you get 10% of residents in the area that you're proposing to be the new parish, if 10% of residents sign the petition, that triggers a governance review, which is carried out by the principal authority. It doesn't happen very often, I think a few times a year, and has never before happened in London. Westminster City Council started off with a sort of questionnaire, and then they decided to carry out a referendum. So our referendum was held in 2012, so that was 2 years after we'd started, by postal vote, and we won that after a lot of door knocking, both before and after the petition. By a good majority, sort of 68% voted yes, but it wasn't a fantastic turnout. It's around 20%. We comforted ourselves that it was higher than any of the police commissioner elections, and it was just a couple of weeks after the mayoral election, so we didn't think the timing had been very advantageous to us. But nonetheless, it is obviously one of the big struggles in local elections of any sort to, sort of get the engagement and the participation as much as you would like. But it was contested, our election, we had to wait till 2014 for our election because they wanted us to be in sync with the other local government elections in London, so another 2 years went past. And so we were elected last May, so we're sort of 16 months in. 12 of us were elected, all as independents. 2 out of the 4 sort of mini wards, zones, were contested, so some of us were not actually elected, but that's how it went. And just to conclude, it's probably fair to say that we're still finding our way, obviously, because there hasn't been parishes before in London. It was quite challenging to recruit a town clerk, because there weren't any in London, or there weren't any other parishes where they might move on to us from. But we've got our neighbourhood plan underway. We've got a new playground. We've funded voluntary organisations that otherwise would have seen their funding cut. We remain really committed to the sort of principles of engagement, meaningful consultation, participation, trying to build democratic engagement at whatever level of government. And I'm really looking forward to picking the brains of others here as to where we might go next. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. And then last in this line are Mike and Rachel, who both come down from Alderley Edge, which is somewhere up north. No, all right. I've never been north of Stroud, actually. They're going to kind of do the same thing, which is just to briefly tell their story, and then, as I say, there'll be an opportunity to pick up a lot more of the details of this immediately afterwards, which I'll tell you about. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, some of you may not know much about Alderley Edge. We are famous for supposedly drinking more champagne than any one community anywhere else in the country. We have virtually all the footballers that there can be living with us. And on the face of it, you would imagine that as you walked in toward Liège, you'd pass a sign which says, "Twinned with heaven." But in February of this year, more and more of us were wandering around, wondering why the baskets with flowers were hanging, not hanging baskets, and why everything that we had in our village looked lackluster. And when our parish council wanted to pave over the allotments to create a car park without really any reference to us, which meant them actually overruling a covenant on the land, where the land had been granted to the village for recreational purposes only, we started to get niggled. For 26 years, the parish council, a Conservative parish council, has come to power each time there's been an election. It was never opposed, and many of us walking up and down the high street started to chat to each other and say, why is this going on? Not one single one of us ever thought of being a parish councillor, but all of us were starting to think we don't want them to be one either. And so by degrees, we started to look at what we needed. No one was listening to the people. And we looked at a group of us. We only needed 9. And out of that 9, one of us, and I'm delighted to say that Craig Brown is with us here, he's our ward councillor. One of our 9 would hopefully go on and represent us at Cheshire East Council. But we needed to find a diverse group of people. I'm 1,000 years old. We needed younger people. Rachel is possibly one of the younger parish councillors in the country at 26, but we needed it to be diverse by gender, by skill, by age, and we started to pull a team together. And I am very proud to work with a group of 9 people that started to come together in March, and on May the 7th, we took all 9 seats. With Craig Brown the day before taking the ward councillorship, and they were absolutely dumbfounded. They had no idea how it happened, and they still don't. But we're making progress. And Rachel, I think you need to just have you need to listen to Rachel. She has watched it all happen. She joined us a little later, well in advance of the election, but she was one of the members that joined us and has made all the difference to our group.
Thank you. For me, there was 2 reasons why I had to get involved. The first reason is my family own a business in the village where we live. We've had the business in my family since 1947. It means we have a real feel for what goes on in the village. I speak to people that live there every single day, and every single day I hear them tell me the good things, but also the bad things. And I didn't think it was fair, given the opportunity to become a parish councillor, that I could stand there and agree with them and often disagree with them about the things that they were saying and not do anything about it. So it seemed like an important decision to make, to realise that actually change can happen and we needed to do that. When I got approached, for me, I wasn't sure I wanted to get involved in local politics. It was all a bit scary. Do I really want to be part of that? And then I realised that actually it's not about politics, it's about the people that live in the village making a change to make the village a better place. So that's what I decided to do. And the final reason was, given that I'm perhaps a younger parish councillor, I thought it was very important to have the views of younger people involved in the decisions that are made. As Mike well pointed out at the start of his speech, the village has a reputation that doesn't necessarily engage the younger generations. and that's wrong to me. They need to be involved. They should have a say in what's going on, and hopefully we will work alongside them to make sure that they get their say. That's it, really.
Thank you.